So this is a very brief commentary recorded after presentation of this paper at the British Ecological Society meeting. The presentation was given by Mark Danson and acknowledged the contributions of Abdul Basit Badi and Richard Armitage, and started by outlining the requirement for fuel moisture information in upland areas relating to the prediction of fire risk. And the initial slide shows previous work that we've done at Salford University looking at mapping variation in fuel moisture content, which is a measure of the amount of water in vegetation canopies in relation to total biomass. And this slide shows results from work done a few years ago at Burbage Moor in the Peak District, and shows on the left fuel moisture content mapped with an airborne hyperspectral imager at 10 different locations. And on the right hand side, the main result of this was that with airborne data flown from an aircraft with a very high spatial resolution of the order of 1.5 to 2 meters, we could at plot level estimate plot level fuel moisture content with an accuracy of around 10%, as shown by this figure here. So this is the measured fuel moisture content at a number of different plots, and this is the fuel moisture content estimated from the moisture stress index. So the objectives really of the current research were to see if we can extend this very local scale, these very local scale measurements, to map fuel moisture content over larger areas. So the first question is, can we find a useful relationship between fuel moisture content and remote sensing data? And what this figure shows is a set of simulations based on the ProSail model, which shows the relationship between fuel moisture content and something called the normalized difference water index, which is normally a ratio of near-infrared and shortwave infrared wave bands. The index at the top shows the bands from Sentinel-2A that were used in these simulations. And as you can see, that in this simulation, where we allowed leaf area index in the canopy to vary between 0.1 and 5, there is very little evidence of a relationship, predictive relationship, between the vegetation index and fuel moisture content. However, if we only look at canopies with a leaf area index of 2, then the predictive relationship looks rather stronger. So the red points show the leaf area index of 2 simulations, and now we've got a useful predictive relationship between the two things. The other issue in scaling up this relationship is whether we can get the data. On the left hand side you can see an extract from a paper we published a few years ago showing the frequency of cloud-free observations of the surface in the UK. At our test site at Burbage, these results showed that the cloud cover frequency at Burbage was of the order of 15%. So only 15 out of 100 days are we able to see the surface. And with Sentinel-2 we have overpasses every 10 days or so, which means that we might be able to get images once a month for mapping fuel moisture content, although that's probably not frequent enough. So we can combine the Sentinel-2 data with data from the Landsat operational land imager, and we, on this figure, we just confirm that we can do this combination of sensors because the spectral bands for Sentinel-2A, the relevant spectral bands, are quite similar. So in terms of the Sentinel-2 data and the Landsat optical land imager data, we have Sentinel-2A data with a 10-day ground track repeat cycle, 10 to 20 metre spatial resolution, and we're using bands 8A and 11. With Landsat operational land imager, 16-day ground track repeat cycle, 30 metre spatial resolution, and bands using bands 5 to 7. Interestingly here, our field site at Burbage is both on a western pass of the north of England and on an eastern pass, which means that we can increase the frequency with which we observe the surface, or attempt to observe the surface, from 10 days to 5 days. This is the field data collection, so the figure shows the dates at which we collected field data here at 5 different plots, sampling fuel moisture content destructively using samples in 5 samples in 5 different plots. So this figure shows the variation in fuel moisture content from from spring rather, early summer through the midsummer into the autumn period, with some rather strange results here for later in the season. The triangles show the dates at which we have data from Sentinel-2A in red and from Landsat operational land imager in blue. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dates so far. And the picture on the right-hand side show Bardi collecting data in a 20 by 20 metre plot, which we use as the basis of sampling. The outcome of this investigation so far is that we have this relationship between fuel moisture content and normalised difference water index. The different colours show the different plots, and what you can see is that there is generally a statistically significant relationship between fuel moisture content and the NDWI, with some outliers at some dates which are probably caused by poor spatial co-registration of the images, possibly due to errors in the atmospheric correction or errors in the ground data. Interestingly, if we plot this same regression line on our model results from before, you can see that the red line from model results is quite different to the red line from the predicted model results for an LAIF2. And this requires further investigation, but it's probably caused by the fact that in the simulations here we haven't properly included the spectral characteristics of the soil, so that requires further work. In conclusion, this presentation has shown that we can potentially estimate fuel moisture content at landscape scale from satellite data in the UK. We can integrate data from different sensors, but that requires careful cross-calibration of the data. With 15% cloud cover frequency at Burbage, weekly image acquisition requires daily acquisition attempts, which we don't currently have with any of with either Sentinel-2 or Landsat 8. However, with Sentinel-2 launching in March 2017, we should have a 2-day repeat cycle, taking into account the overlap between the eastern and western passes of both Sentinel-2A and Sentinel-2B, with the potential for fuel moisture content prediction and input into fire prediction models for this area.